Hey everybody, it's Floyd here. Standing here in my workshop at 5:30 in the morning. I'm getting ready to tell you, I'm going to start telling you a story of a motorcycle this week. At least during my term of ownership. It's my 1983 Honda VF 750F Interceptor. In the past, I had been calling this thing the cheap ass Interceptor. But I'm trying to clean up my diction a little bit, be a nicer person. So I'm actually just going to start calling this the low-cost Interceptor because it has been relatively budget-friendly. It's not beautiful by most standards, but I'm quite happy with it. In 1983, Honda came out with the Interceptor, the same year I turned 16. And I read about it in the magazines and stuff, and it was a dream bike. I never even tried to get one then because although I could have afforded the motorcycle or the insurance, I couldn't afford both. And in all honesty, I take some ribbing from some young guys for riding an old sport bike, but I'm a lot safer now with 40 years of riding experience than I would have been at the age of 16 anyway. So I purchased this bike in 2023 at the Fast Lane Swap Meet at the beginning of Bike Week during the VJMC show in Deland, Florida at the fairgrounds. And the bike was sitting there at a booth for sale with a price tag on it. And I walked past it a couple times. My wife and I mentioned to her that I'd like to have it. And unbeknownst to me, the next day, her and a friend of hers went back and negotiated to get price down on it. So I went over there and traded the guy some cash and an antique bicycle for it. I think it worked out very well. Of course, it was not running, hadn't been running in years. The guy did stick a battery in it and let me see that the engine would spin over. So I got it home. The first thing I did was check the spark and the compression, make sure that was working. While it was apart, I went ahead and pulled the valve covers off, checked the valve clearances. I didn't take any pictures of that. I was so happy to have it. So glad to see the cams were in good shape. I worked as a Honda service technician back in the 90s when these bikes were still late model enough to be brought into the dealerships for service. And in all the time that I've worked on them, I've only ever actually seen one that had flat camshafts. I know it happened. It was enough that Honda issued a technical service bulletin about it. But the only one that I ever saw was a VF 700F that had been run low on oil after a chain strike on the engine case when the chain broke and cracked the engine case. This one was in great shape, so I rebuilt the carburetors. I spent a large fortune rebuilding the carburetors. I'd say this is a low-cost build. It was low-cost, but there were no corners cut in the safety or in the performance for this motorcycle. After I got the carburetors done and I got it running, I had to rebuild the front brakes. The front brakes were totally seized up. So the calipers got fully rebuilt. And I replaced the master cylinder with a set of remote reservoir Nissan master cylinders that I bought from WeBike Japan. This was long before I became part of their official partner program, which make sure you check out their deals that they have going on this week. once that was all done, the rear brake was actually still working. So I just changed out the fluid. I did not realize how badly seized the caliper really was, other than the piston. So I changed out the fluid, I rebuilt the front brake calipers, replaced the master cylinders, and I actually rode it for a while. Primer, dents, cracked bodywork and all. Well, it turns out the VJMC National Rally was coming up. And I was going to take this bike to ride. I got new tires for it. Granted, they're inexpensive Duro tires, but those tires do 99% of what the expensive tires will do. You just act like you have some sense and be prepared to replace them more frequently. And I was going to replace the fork seals. I had been driving the thing with bad fork seals and extremely bald tires and worn out rear brake pads. Inexpensive Duro tires will be much better than the bald mess that's on this thing now. Well, it turns out that any 2-hour job can easily become a 3-day ordeal if you strip out the wrong bolt. In this case, the bolt head and the bottom one of the fork legs rounded out. So now I have to completely disassemble the front end and drill the bolt out. Oh well, that's life. That's one of the reasons why I always stay crazy. Well, after about a month of delays and things going wrong, I finally got the cheap ass Interceptor sitting back on its own wheels with the front end back on it. I think it'll be pretty sharp. That bike's room. Well, it's Sunday morning. The little church I normally attend in the neighborhood has had services canceled because the pastor is sick. So I've come out here to work on the Interceptor and worship at the Church of Speed. Right now I'm not concentrating on making it any faster. Today is all about making it safer. I've replaced the fork seals and all the fork fluids. The front brakes have been completely rebuilt. It has new brake and clutch master cylinders, genuine Nissan that I purchased from WeBike. On the rear, I didn't do anything except clean out the master cylinder and it went back to working. But when I pulled the wheel off, the brakes were shot. So today I'm going to replace them and get what's left of the bodywork off to paint it black. So that's it. Let me show you one of my favorite tricks here. This brake caliper was completely functional, but with all the dirt and corrosion on these pistons, if I had simply pushed them back in and put new brake pads in, they probably would have started hanging up. What I like to do is pump the master cylinder until the pistons come out far enough that you can see the clean stripe around the bottom of them where they were inside of the caliper. And then take a piece of Scotch-Brite soaked in WD-40 and clean them off gently until you get them clean and shiny all over. Also, make sure that these pivot pins right here, these slider pins, are moving completely freely. While you're at it, make sure you polish off everything that's supposed to slide and properly lubricate it. Remember what I was telling you about checking these slider pins out? There's so much rust on this one. It's no wonder the brakes felt wooden and didn't seem to respond correctly. I had to hammer it out of the hole a little bit with a rubber hammer just to get it loose enough to remove it to clean it. One of my main goals with this old Interceptor has been to have maximum fun for minimum money. The fairing is badly busted up and has been poorly reassembled several times, which makes me feel even better about ratting it out. So without any further ado, Let's get to spraying some adhesion promoter. I've already sanded it down. Let's turn this thing flat black. The VFR ramp will be appearing shortly.